Hey, you guys. So, I want to give you a few takeaways that I got out of my interview with Dr. Robert Glover. First of all, I think it was very generous of him to do an interview with someone with a small channel such as I have. And he's done it twice. And it's given me an opportunity to try to improve my interview skills. On the first interview I did with him, I had a long list of questions that I never got to. And I thought, he's so good at explaining things. I thought, let me just give him the floor and let him talk. But then when I watched the second interview, I'm like, I'm interrupting him a lot. And I was trying to get some points across. So, what I have to remember to do is to not interrupt my guest. Some of you had asked about Louise Perry. She replied to me and said she's busy working on her next book and she's not doing any interviews at this time. I am subscribed to her Substack and I do watch her YouTube channel, Maiden Mother Matriarch. And so she still has that going. And on her Substack article, she made a post the other day about how she does her writing in a way that she has access to the information without being on the internet, which is very distracting, and how to work through when you can't find the right word. And she had a picture of her work area and all the different journals she used and so on, which I thought was super cool. So she will not be visiting my channel. If you think of any people that you think might want to come on to be interviewed, please have them write to me or send me an email, because right now I'm not reading the comments really. Okay, so what I got out of the interview, first of all, I think that he looks very healthy and full of vitality for a man in his 70s. I also found him extremely authentic and owning parts of himself that he didn't like or that he was past weaknesses or whatever. And he seemed to have a real big compassion for helping men, for his family. I love how he spoke about his wife very lovingly. And I also think that he has a lot of important messages for women, because I personally got these things out of it for myself. One is to not be a victim, because he talked about how his second wife was this hot, gorgeous woman, but she didn't treat him well, and he took responsibility for that. You know, we talked about the manosphere quite a bit, and I think that I let them kind of delude me into some false reality. Whereas, we have to take accountability for the people we let into our lives. He talked about how he left his wife, even though he loved her, because he wanted to be with a woman who treated him well. And it's hard to leave people that we love, but if we want to improve our lives, that's what we have to do. And I found there's like no anger or anything. Like, he totally owned it, like, I married this woman, she was super hot, she didn't treat me well, so I left her. And he seems like very like happy with his life. I also talked we talked about sexuality quite a bit, because I asked him about the manosphere, and this is a sex channel. And he talked about how women are like sexual Ferraris and men are sexual mopeds, meaning that we are a lot more sexual than men. We can have many more orgasms than men. We can have many more sex than men, much more sex than men. And in tribal days, it's true that there was no monogamy. Monogamy is a recent social construct. But in the tribal days, there were a lot of penises and a lot of vaginas, and it was the best sperm that made it to the egg. It wasn't the guy, these guys are going around like, yeah, I spread my seed. Not really, because most men's seed was not really good enough to make it to the egg. So only the superior seed made it. But he said that what we really need to do is stop abusing children sexually and stop shaming women during adolescence for their sexuality, because it's men and culture that are stifling female sexuality. That's what this whole body count thing is about. That's what this whole I won't date a single mom thing is about. I'm kind of paraphrasing now. Is that men are terrified of female sexuality. He talked about a course that he does. He's teaching men that women need positive emotional tension. We do not want to be bored with you. And men hate emotional tension, so they keep it constrained in small areas like a football game, where they get very excited, but it's a finite time. But women, we need that so we don't get bored with you. And when his course on introducing emotional tension, when he added to his course the idea of women as sexual Ferraris and that we have such a greater sexual capacity than men, men start wanting refunds on the course. And he asked them why, and it was that they are like, this course just isn't for me. In all of his work with men over 40 years, he found that men are really terrified of female sexuality because we're so much more sexual than they are, and it's very threatening to an insecure man. He also talked about how with his wife, he has a saying. He said, "You're mine and you're free." I hope I'm quoting this right. You're mine because all women want to be claimed, and you're free. Like, I don't own you. She goes out dancing and does her thing, and she tells him what she did. And he trusts her, and she trusts him. And there's no reason to lie. Why would they? And it's a very freeing type of relationship. I'm sure that she's very happy with him. He also talked about how she wants to have sex with him 2 or 3 times a day, and they've been married for years, I believe, as a testament to a woman's sexual appetite. And she's much younger. He married a much younger woman. He also talked about how some men just really want the trophy woman, whatever, young and hot, or whatever the manosphere says, because it makes an insecure man feel like, oh, well, if other men think my wife is hot, then I'm someone. But what they forget to look at is, how is this woman treating me? And that's super important. How does this woman treat me? And at the end of the video, and I hope you'll watch the whole interview, he talked about what he would do for a woman, all the ways he would show up. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be on my purpose. And then the women would be like, well, what do you want from me? And I think he said, I forgot now, but just a minute. Okay, yeah, so you have to watch it because he told the woman everything that he would do. And she's like, well, what do you expect from me? And he said, treat me well and make my world beautiful. And the women would be like, oh, wow, I'm down for that. So I think that's great because men are often like, what do you bring to the table? There's a lot of very toxic stuff on the internet. And he also talked about why he doesn't read the comments. He doesn't read any comments. So I'm like, he doesn't read comments. Joe Rogan doesn't read comments. Chris Williamson doesn't read comments. And these are very successful men. So I'm going to copy what they're doing because if I want to be successful in life and get to these places like these guys are, I got to take some advice from them. So I don't read the comments anymore except from channel members. You can be a channel member by hitting the join button. And that way I know you're safe. Your comment's going to be safe and not like all hostile. Because people can be very impolite on the internet. He also talked about how, he teaches men to live a life of purpose and confidence, how men need community, how much he enjoys working with men, and that, boys, teenagers, they need to be initiated into the world of manhood by men. I think it's really great what he's doing. A lot of what I do on my channel, it comes out of that. If there were just some great guys around, I could find someone to date. A man with purpose, a man with confidence, a man who doesn't try to own me or own my sexuality. And I will never, ever again be with a man who tries to control my sexuality or be afraid of my sexuality. Ever, ever fucking again. And that's what a lot of the manosphere is about. They're all about, this is just me adding my stuff on, they want to own a woman's sexuality because they're scared shitless that their dick isn't good enough, that we're too sexual for them, that they can't keep up with us. And they can't. They should just fucking admit it. Yes. Men are terrified because they are projecting their unresolved mommy issues. This is what Dr. Glover says. They're projecting their unresolved mommy issues onto women, and they have vagina phobia or something like that. Like they felt unloved by their mommy, so they want the woman to give them all this love they never got. And the only way they can get it is that he's the one and the only, and she never has lust for anyone else. Well, guess what? We're very sexual beings. Of course we're going to lust for other people. And to the extent that a man shames a woman to tamper down her sexuality, to try to control it and own it and keep it in check, she's going to be asexual with him. Every man who's married to a woman who won't give him a blowjob or fuck him or is not in the mood is a woman who was shamed for her sexuality by men like that, including probably the husband, unknowingly, because there's no space for her to thrive. A woman naturally is a sexual being unless something happened to her. Okay? And one of the quote I made from my coaching business, which I'm not doing any coaching, but it was, who were you before the world told you who to be? Because a lot of bullshit comes from who we're told we should be. Not who we are, but what we're told by our parents, by society, by religion, by the teachers, by the government officials, and the government officials have a lot of ideas. At one point, it was illegal for blacks and whites to marry. Illegal. At one point, it was illegal for gay people to marry. Illegal. You cannot pay someone to have sex with you unless you're filming it for porn. At one time, marijuana was illegal, and then during COVID, it became an essential business. They're always changing their mind and trying to tell us what's right or wrong and fucking with our heads. By the way, I am hoping that Kennedy wins. I don't know if he will win, but the Republican Democratic parties are complicit in the status quo of controlling our data, telling us what to do, and not giving us any viable options. Do you know how hard it is for him to get on the ballot? Every state, ever since Ross Perot had a huge turnout, all the Republicans and Democratic power players decided never again. So they changed the laws, and every state made it a little bit different. You have to jump through all these hurdles to get on the ballot if you're an independent. And they're robbing us of choice. I want to hear what the Green Party has to say. I might not want to vote for them, but I think they should have a seat at the table. The communists, the socialists, whatever, all the parties. I want to hear from them all. I love ideas. I love dialogue. I love respectful, interesting dialogue, even if I don't agree with it. That's a sign of a mature adult. I'm not saying that I'm mature, but I'm saying that's what we should all strive for. Anyway, I was very inspired by that interview, because it made me realize to what extent I had been feeling trapped by the views of these men I was listening to on the internet. When I first was looking up like dating things, Matthew Hussey came up, and then I came across Richard Cooper, Entrepreneurs in Cars, and then it was Rollo Tomasi, and then YouTube kept showing me these same kind of guys, and they're like talking about body count and hitting the wall, and you should never marry a woman, that all women are out to get ya, MGTOW, incels, and I kind of got stuck in that, and that's all YouTube kept showing me. And in my real life, I was hooking up with guys in their 20s who were blowing me off, and then I was seeing this. I'm like, well, I guess the world has changed. I was just living this quiet life in the suburbs for decades, raising my family. And when I got divorced, I emerged into this new world where men were shaving their pubic hair. What the heck, guys? Personally, no, don't do it. Personally, I do not shave your pubic hair. You can trim it, but you don't want to look like a prepubescent boy. Same with women, just trim it. Don't want to look like a little girl. It's pedophilic. Looks like a shaved goat to me. Forgive me if I offended you, but I emerged to this world of people on dating apps just kind of talking to me and then blocking me. I'm like, is this how we're supposed to behave? This was a whole new world of people being rude and more transactional than I had lived my life, being around in a community more or less. And these things I was seeing on the internet, I'm like, this is how it was, and then texting had come up and phones had come up, and it was, oh, we're supposed to post things on Facebook and Instagram. We're supposed to meet people on dating apps, and it took me a while to figure out that some of these trends were not good, that people behave poorly online, and but I started the reason I didn't date men my age is because I felt very trapped, and I felt very trapped, and I still do, because of this whole ownership thing of like marriage and a house and giving up a lot of freedoms. When I was talking to Dr. Glover, it reminded me of when I had met Dr. Nick Karras, who is a sexologist in San Diego, who wrote the book Petals. And around him, I also felt so free, because he has that same mindset of like, just enjoying people, not trying to own their sexuality, that women are sexual creatures. You don't have to try to control them. And I noticed that talking to people like that feels very freeing. And this whole idea of like dating a guy and going into like this role of rigid role thing. I don't want to feel rigid and rolled. Anyway, doing that interview helped me realize again that all of this bullshit about body count and, women shouldn't be sexual is men trying to control women. I don't want to hook up because I think it's loser of guys to just have sex with me and ghost me. And most guys are not good enough in bed to be worth a one night stand, frankly. They're not worth it. So I think that's a separate issue from being a sexual being. Um, but anyway, I just wanted to wrap that up. I hope that you guys will watch the whole video and leave your comments, anything that you got out of the video. And now I'm going to make a video for my members, and it's going to be about the guy who was the charlatan. I'm going to call it the charlatan. This was a guy that I met a few years ago when I was still an escort, and I was trying to date him. This was when I was still trying to be open-hearted and be open to life. Too open, I think. I call him the charlatan, so I'm going to make that for the members only. And again, if you want to join that, you can. That's just kind of for me to talk about stuff, more personal things, behind the scenes, and no ads. Okay, anyway, thanks for watching my video.